It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Monday, April 14th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is just sick of these overtime points racking up at the end of the season, Russ.
It's just crazy.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials, and of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, we did just experience the 24th overtime or shootout game of an 82-game season. I don't know, that seems like a lot to me.
It doesn't seem like 24 overtime games does not seem like a lot because I have texted home on a bunch of them to say it's overtime. That's the only reason I have an accounting for it.
Yeah. It is quite a bit for the Flyers season. We will get into that as well as the Frozen Four final and Flyers prospect Alex Bump's performance in that. And it's Monday, so we will have our Nemesis of the week. Prior to the weekend back-to-back, we thought we saw Carson Bjarnason hanging around. He was in the press box in Philly on Saturday for the game against the Isles. It seems like that, yes, indeed, he is injured. Otherwise, he would be with the Phantoms for sure.
Yep. So that's fine. I mean, again, we kind of talked about it last show, and, you get him back at full strength next year.
Yep, I certainly hope so. I mean, I guess anything's possible that he could end up in the playoffs in the AHL.
Sure, but I don't know if you're throwing into that.
No, I don't think so either. They had that crazy Nikita Grabenkin call-up, not a call-up situation.
The paper situation? I think it was a paper situation. Yeah.
Well, it was also maybe there was somebody who was banged up. They didn't know until last minute if he was going to be able to play, and that seems like what it was. But at any rate, he got to hang out with the Flyers for a day, so good for him. And
he did not make his debut, though, as it was
tweeted. Did not. He did not. And we did get Gary Galley in the broadcast booth on Sunday, which was kind of fun. And love me some Bush, but it's always a nice change of pace to get a different perspective.
Yeah, having just been to Ottawa, it was funny to hear that. So it was cool.
Yeah. I think, we're going to talk about Tyson Foerster and the goaltending and all that. But I think, the big picture here is the Flyers keep either winning or going to overtime and getting an extra point. And it was fun for a while.
Yeah.
But is it still fun?
Right. Now it's hurting a bit. So it's like, this is what happens. I mean, again, there's not much you could do. Like, once this train started, there's not much you can do. And now it's just one of these things where, I've been talking to a bunch of people and there's all this hope of getting like this player or that player, but teams aren't going to wait for the Flyers to pick to hold certain players, and certain players I hear might be going earlier than, what people expect. So, and if that happens, then yeah, it could hurt a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, as we know, and as we've been talking about, that tier in the draft, if let's just say they end up in the 6 or 7 spot,
right.
When all is said and done, I feel like in the 5 to 8 range, you're going to get a similar level kind of player. But at the same time, just being those couple of spots higher may get you the exact player that you want, right?
Correct. Yeah. It may be a difference of making a choice or seeing who drops.
Exactly. Exactly. So, pros and cons to all of this. I do think the pros are there. I think Tyson Foerster is one of those pros for sure. Love to see, the hat trick and then a 2-goal game against the Islanders. That 2-goal game, he actually had 6 shot attempts. And so to score on 2 of them, that's a pretty solid game for him.
It was solid. I mean, one of them, Hogberg, completely moved in the wrong direction.
Okay.
But it was a goal. Like, it's fine. I mean, it was good to see it. You do have to put, like, a little emphasis on, hey, all right, Tyson, on the way out, you say we need more consistency, but it's good that you finish strong.
Right. And I think on the goaltending side of things, I liked Samerson's performance in net against the Islanders. I
Yeah, it
think
was
it was
okay.
Yeah, I think it was an important game for him to have, just to have that kind of, especially in the shootout, to not let any goals in.
Right.
I think that I mean, we know he's good at the shootout,
Yes.
but I think it's a good reminder for him and for us that he does have something to bring to the table. It may not be a number one goaltender.
No, but he's still a good goalie. Like, it's just not everybody's a number one. I mean, there's so many guys that, get touted as that and just they're a 1B, and it's fine. It's hard to play. There's only 80 jobs. Well, 84.
Right. Yeah. And
I had to do the extra
Fedotov.
math.
Right, right. Fedotov, I thought, was okay for parts of the game against the Sens. I think he does lose his stick more than he probably should overall, but I felt like he wasn't as flaily as he can be, but he had his moments too.
Yeah, he did, and it's not even 84, it's less than that. I'm not doing the math. I have too much cough medicine in me. Yeah, I think he was less flaily. I but again, there's moments where not square to the shooter, things were being pointed out,
Hmm.
and these are things that really he has to learn, and it's hard to learn at the NHL level. That's the one thing we've been preaching.
Right. And I think, Jacob Peltier continues to
Yes,
be
he looks
a
good.
really, really strong presence. I think he's gotten better and better as
Mhm.
his run with the Flyers has gone on. And, it was Torts that moved him up off that fourth line initially, but I think
Yeah, after
I
2
think,
weeks or more of
right.
purgatory.
Sure, sure. So I just want to make sure it was credit where credit's due in terms of the initial move, but Bradshaw has continued to play him up
And he
on the
puts him on the
third
power play.
line.
Torts would never have
Yep,
done that.
correct, correct. So he's gotten more opportunities, and I think
Yes.
he's thrived in that environment. And so it was good to see him get on the board this weekend as well. I think, on the flip side of things, there's a few guys we do have to talk about. And I think Travis Konecny for me is number one on that list. And against the Sens, he did have 7 shot attempts
Mhm.
in that game. 3 of them were shots on goal and 2 misses and 2 blocks. So, like, not exactly a stellar performance as far as that goes. So I did feel like he was a little bit more active in the game against the Sens, and maybe it's because Giroux's there. I don't know. But that being said, I just feel like he's been kind of missing in action over this run of playing fast and loose for the Flyers and finding some success because he's got no goals in 8 games. He's got no goals since John Tortorella is fired. And that is what's surprising to me, to be honest.
Right. So there's a lot of discussion about it, obviously, and then people wonder, well, is he hurt? Well, if he's hurt, then he wouldn't go to Worlds, and the word is he's probably going to Worlds.
Yep.
So I don't think he's hurt. I think like he wasn't shooting enough. Then I think today he shot a little more. He did get 1 post, but his game is off. Like you could just see his
Yeah.
game is off, and that's on him right now. And yeah, as good as he started the season since the 4 Nations, it has not been good.
Right. And so that's where the concern is for me. And,
Yeah.
as much as these, like the loser point and these extra points in the draft situation is bothering me, I think if we're going to have the Flyers finding success, him not being a part of that is a problem for me, especially going
Sure.
into the off season. I think Owen Tippett, it was kind of a mixed bag this weekend. He was missing the net against the Sens for sure. I was so happy for him against the Islanders. He didn't score, but he had 6 shot attempts in that game. 5 of them were on goal and 1 was blocked. He missed 0 shots in that game,
Yeah.
which is remarkable for him. But he just like went back to his usual self against the Sens, and I was just like, come on, Owen.
Although I will say on the maybe, and this is just him being too unselfish, but at the Islanders game, he did have a break, and I don't know why
Yeah,
he passed it on that.
I
I thought he
know.
should have
I
faked it,
know.
and it kind of frustrated me a little bit. But okay, you can see at times he's just thinking out there, and when he's thinking out there, he doesn't do well.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I was just very frustrated on his behalf there. And then I would just say York and Drysdale continue to be a little bit of
It's a
a
mixed
mixed
bag.
bag
It's
for
definitely a mixed
sure.
bag.
And I think like York is taking terrible penalties a lot right now. And I think Drysdale is just, he had 2 penalties in the first
Oh, that was
against
brutal. Yeah.
the Islanders. Yeah, that was just not great. And I felt like neither one of them did much of anything against the Sens.
No, I mean, Drysdale got the one shot on net that Delorier knocked in, but he didn't even get an assist on it.
I know.
So it's like that was about the best he did in the last 3 games. It's just not
Yeah,
enough. And
I
so,
know.
yeah, whoever the next coach is going to have to focus on that because they have to figure out what he is next year.
Yeah, well, congrats to Noah Cates for getting a wraparound goal in because it's
There you
something
go.
we've joked about all season long.
1
That
out of like
wraparounds,
85
I
tries.
know that wraparounds don't work as well in the NHL as they
But
do
he did
in.
it.
Yeah, I know. So proud. Good job, Noah. At any rate, we will talk about the Flyers' next opponent, the Columbus Blue Jackets, on tomorrow's show. In the meantime, we're going to wrap up the NCAA Frozen Four and talk about Alex Bump and Devin Kaplan and more coming up next.
Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts are ready to help you take your business to the next level. They helped me on my website, nhldraftbuzz.com. Upwork gives business flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today.
We are also going to talk about the Lehigh Valley Phantoms on tomorrow's show. They had a couple of games this past weekend, and they've got their final 2 regular season games coming up this week. So a very crucial point for the Phantoms. And we will be answering your mailbag questions on our Wednesday show. So get them in. You can email us at lockdownflyers@gmail.com. You can message us on our socials or comment on our YouTube channel. So before we dive into the Frozen Four, just a quick note. Frank Saravalli noted that Flyers prospect Owen McLaughlin is going to be transferring from North Dakota to BU next season. It's not official,
No, not
but
yet.
that's the word on the street, so to speak.
I mean, when I was at Lehigh Valley covering that Penn State game when they won, there were over 100 players in the portal. So I imagine it's going to take a little while to get everything official.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where everybody nets out after the portal activity is done. The college portal right now is like madness.
It's insane.
In all sports, like
Yeah.
not
Oh,
just
no.
hockey.
I write about it. So like I have to look. Guys play on different teams every year sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And Alex Bump is one of those guys who transferred to Western Michigan. He was originally supposed to go to Vermont. They had that whole incident with the coach getting fired, and it turned out to be a very good thing for him to end up at Western Michigan and wound up on the top line for that team. As we've been talking about, he started the game in the semifinal. Very interesting, though, because with all the hype around him right now, 0 points in the Frozen Four tournament overall. And I say that, but also I think he had a pretty solid tournament at the same time.
I mean, he did good things. Like it wasn't like he was doing bad things on the ice, but he definitely was rushing his shots, especially the first game. I saw he was rushing. So, the moment was definitely big in that game. I thought he played fairly well in the final game, but he really wasn't a factor. The announce team made him more of a factor than he was. But here's the thing, and you helped point it out. There is a way to game plan against them. And they did.
They really did. And your point about the semifinal versus the final, in the semifinal, he had 16 shot attempts and 9 were shots on goal. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And to also have none of them go was pretty upsetting. But the Denver goalie was phenomenal. So we'll talk about him later. But That being said, 5 of them missed, and 3 of those missed shots were in overtime, in that critical overtime.
Right.
And 2 of them were blocked. But then in the final, he only had 5 shot attempts total in that game. Now, BU is a very different team than Denver, and I understand different competition, different game plan, but still,
Bigger
like
defenseman, better defenseman,
Mhm.
like it was all of that.
It was all of that combined, you're right, and I just think he did play extremely well. I think that he was very active on the rush. I think that is his best
Mhm,
skill, is to be part of the rush. He had really good passes that just weren't capitalized on by his
mhm.
teammates at times, so you can't really fault him for that. But the major issue I have with his game is that he cannot handle pressure, especially when it's coming from behind. Like, he gets stripped of the puck so
He
easily
does.
in those situations, and that is something he needs to work on.
Yeah, that's why he slashed G Bouillon because G Bouillon was doing it
Mhm.
to him.
Yep. So I think, there are pros and cons with him. He's a
Mhm.
developing player, and I think he's a very good developing
Yeah,
player.
that's the
I
key. I
just
mean, so many people are talking about him getting a big chance with the Flyers next year, and I wouldn't have any of it. I would let him go to camp,
let him
hang
cook.
out in preseason games, and then send him right to Lehigh. And that's not a demotion. That's not anything
Nope.
but, hey, guy, work on these things. If you are dominating this league, we'll call you up, but you got to dominate that league.
Yeah, and I think he's got some Bobby Brink issues, like,
Yeah,
in s
I think that's fair.
as far as being able to potentially adjust to the physicality and the
Mhm.
speed of the NHL game, and it's no slight, it's just a fact,
He's 20 years
and
old.
yeah, like, give him the time to learn those skills at the AHL level and then come up when he's ready. I think that's the right path. Hopefully, they do sign him soon and maybe even have already
Like,
signed him by
here's
the
the
time
thing, I
you're
mean,
watching this, you know?
they love that coach, and there is
Mhm.
always a chance that he goes back and tries to win another championship. Like, that lore will be there too. So, and I don't know, will they, because they're champions, will there be NIL money? There could be now.
Could
So,
be.
that's another factor. So, like, if he doesn't sign the next day, like G William did, doesn't mean he's not signing, just means there's other things that they're going to be discussing.
Now, Pat Ferschweiler, the coach of Western Michigan, happens to be a former teammate of Keith Jones
Hmm.
when they both played at Western Michigan. So there
Hmm.
is like a stronger connection there. There's vague rumors about him being under consideration for the Flyers coaching job. Would not be shocked if they talked to him, but it seems like a little premature for him to come
Yeah,
back
it
to the
really does.
NHL.
I've not heard anything strong about it, especially before the win.
Right.
He seems like a good guy and he's definitely a good motivator, but it's completely different.
I
And,
know. I like if he came back as an assistant, that
sure,
would not shock me, but I don't think he would want to
he
leave
wouldn't do that now
that
that he won a
program.
championship.
I know.
He'll get a new deal there and
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. He could rule that for a while. So I don't see it as happening, but they might talk to him because Keith
Yeah.
Jones knows him, and why wouldn't you?
Yeah. I think a conversation will be had, and that will be the end of it. But their opponent, Boston University, had Flyers prospect Devin Kaplan. He had 2 assists in the Frozen Four
Yeah, he looked pretty good.
tournament, and I thought, yeah, for the most part, he looked better than he'd looked in the
A
past.
lot
I
of
thought
times this year. Yeah.
yeah, I thought he really stepped up his game for the Frozen Four. I thought that his physicality was really good. I thought
Mhm.
he knocked people off the puck really well, but he took that kneeing penalty in the final that was not great. And sometimes he just wasn't as active in the offensive zone as I thought he
No, he
needed to
definitely wasn't
be.
as active as you'd hope, but I think we have to understand, like, I wondered what he was when he was at the NTDP because there was a stacked lineup. Now he's
Yeah,
like an older guy with BU. I think he is generally a role player. I think
yep.
that's what we have to look at him as. If you look at him under that lens, then you're giving him a chance.
I think so, and just give him another year at BU and
Right.
then see if you wanna sign him,
Right.
but I do think there were some very good things that I saw from him
Yeah, no
in the
question. I mean, he had
tournament.
some points. I mean,
Yeah, really, really happy for him, overall, despite the fact that they lost in the final. I know it must be hard, but he did have a good tournament
he did.
there. Other notable unsigned players, I am in the Matt Davis fan club right now, goaltender for Denver. I just thought he had one of the most tremendous performances I've ever seen in net in the semifinal. And I just was, despite the fact that they lost. Like, to me, he was the player of the game in a loss there, because it was the double overtime loss there. And I think that he's worth a look. I think somebody's going to sign him.
If somebody doesn't sign him, I think he'll get invited to dev camp for sure. Maybe even a couple dev camps to kind of get a look there. And yeah, I think he's earned that. He's really good. He was a big reason they even stayed in that game.
Yeah, and the goal scorer for that double overtime win against him was Owen Michaels of Western Michigan, who wound up being kind of the MVP of Western Michigan for the tournament. 3 goals, 2 assists in the tournament. Tremendous shot. Like, the release on his shot is
it's really good. But he is 24, so that's the one thing.
Right.
A team looking at him is going to be like, we're not sure because of his age. But he felt it, man. He was feeling it that game. Yeah.
So any other standouts for you?
No, I think you covered most. I just think, it was a lot of fun. We saw that Jeep Williams signed. I don't think we're shocked at that.
Nope.
And and that was to be expected. And I think it was good. I think it was fun to see, and I think it was good that it was getting the coverage that it did. I like that.
Yeah, I did too. And I just think it's going to be really good to see Alex Bump develop with the Flyers organization. I'm very excited for him to join the organization more permanently, and just like, let's get him going and see what he can do. Because with a guy like that, a pick like that, for him to potentially hit would be a really good thing for the Flyers.
Oh yeah, no question. I mean, I think both he and Kaplan are, Kaplan's before the 5th round, I think, but he might be 1 round before.
He was a 3rd rounder.
3rd round, 2 rounds. So I mean, you hit on those guys, you're laughing, but there's a lot of time between now and then. I'm not making any predictions here.
Of course. All right. It is Monday, so we will have our Nemesis of the week and more coming up next. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts, and each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to keep you feeling fuller longer. And personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, and I have them at my desk while I am working. And a little ways back, I had some friends over for a movie night, and instead of popcorn, we had bowls of a variety of their flavors, which everyone loved. But the Wonderful Pistachios, chili roasted no shells, and the sea salt and vinegar no shells were the biggest hits by far. I like the sea salt ones the best. They're so delicious and healthy too. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids. These little green wonders pack a protein punch. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Russ, it is the last week of the NHL regular season. I can't believe we are here. It feels like it's been forever, but also just yesterday that this season got going. And we talked a little bit about the draft lottery earlier in the show, in terms of the Flyers getting these extra points and going down a couple of spots. The top 3 spots are locked in for the Sharks, the Blackhawks, and the Preds right now. So I think that it's just one of those things with the Flyers. And we'll see where they end up. Again, the lottery itself will be May 5th or 6th. We don't know exactly yet, but we will find out soon. And again, I'm spending some quality time on Tankathon. Last time it took me 2 tries to get the first overall pick. This time it took me 7.
Yeah, the more they drop.
Yeah. So, we'll see. Crazier things have happened, and Flyers, I think, are owed one a little bit.
Sure, but Danny's not going to get 7 tries on that night that they show him on TV.
No, that is true. That is also true. Heading into our Nemesis of the week here. Last week, I took one last dig at the NHL schedule makers because I was really annoyed about having a back-to-back in the last week of the season. I was like, really? Are we doing this again? And on the weekend as well. But, I did it because I could, and now we have the whole off season to wait for another chance to do that.
Mhm,
You talked about PNC Park in
mhm.
Pittsburgh, covering the number of Roberto Clemente with an advertisement, and that did not sit well with you. I
Or
actually consult.
anybody, they reversed it.
Yeah, I know they did. And so I consulted with my Pittsburgh family on the subject. My nephew was pretty like uninterested in it and said nobody cares. Maybe that's because he's younger and he's not
Mhm,
as connected to that history. My
mhm.
brother said that, yeah, people were mad, but they fixed it pretty quickly. So people got over it pretty quickly too.
Until they threw out all the bricks with everybody's names on them that
Yes.
that people
Oh,
paid money for. They're not over
they
that.
did. They're not over that. No, my brother forwarded me an email about that.
Uh-huh.
And as
Yeah.
somebody who has had their brick at Wells Fargo Center moved
Just imagine,
or
yes.
removed, it was the very upsetting thing for me.
Yes.
So I get it. I 100 relatable 100% there. Luckily, I have the replica of the brick that
That's good.
was given to me along with getting the brick in the pavement itself. But this week, I think my nemesis, I think of course has to be the fact that playoff excitement is building. And once again, the Flyers are not involved. And I am really bummed out about that, Russ.
I
I
understand.
I think like it's been enough years now where it's like in a rebuild, of course, you're like, okay, for these 2 years, 3 years, you're like, it's going to be a struggle and we're going to go through some hard times. But I think, again, and we've talked about this before, but kind of the nature of the Hextall to Fletcher, to Danny Briere path that this
Yeah, it
Flyers
wasn't
team has
ideal.
taken wasn't ideal because rebuild got hijacked midstream and
Yep,
then changed again, and so
yep,
we've never quite gotten past that threshold
yep.
despite the one playoff appearance in the bubble, which I'm not really counting because
Right.
that was an
I wouldn't count
anomaly.
that. Yeah.
Right. And I've been trying to think like, would I rather have what the Flyers are going through with three different administrations, so to speak, and still kind of being in that early rebuild stage, or would I rather be in the Iser plan, which is the same guy, and they haven't gotten anywhere either?
Right.
That's a tough choice,
It is a
right?
tough choice, and that's why this is a hard thing in the NHL.
Yeah. It's really hard to get to the playoffs, and especially with this many teams now. And it's hard to win once you get there. So we'll do it again next year, as they say.
Yeah. So my nemesis is going to be the NFL draft, and this is why. The reason I don't like to do, and I almost never do mock drafts anymore, is because of the NFL. I'm a New York Jets fan. They picked seventh. They have picked probably in different mock drafts 14 different players over the last 2 months on who they might take next week. And it's just it gets to be a little ridiculous after a while. It's kind of
Right.
like just, well, let's just swap out this guy and see what you think about him taking a tight end. What do you think about him taking a wide receiver? What do you think about taking a center? What do you think about taking a quarterback? What do it's just like, enough. You just get sick of it after a while. And that's why I don't like to do it, because I just feel like when you rank, you don't have to do those things. You don't have to play those games. So that's the big reason. And so that's my nemesis of the week. And we'll see what happens next week when the NFL draft hits full force.
Yeah. Well, I think, there's some similarities to the NHL draft there because I think that while there's much fewer positions,
Mhm.
obviously, there's really only four to choose from in the NHL. I think there's so many different variations within those positions in terms of the roles that they would play or the
Mhm.
skills that they bring to the table. And are you trying to get best available versus filling a team need? And like anything can happen. And we've seen that
Mhm.
from year after year after year that guys go way earlier than you would expect or way
That's why I
later.
don't try and predict it for all 32 teams.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. And I do give credit to people who try to do it. And
Yeah.
I think that I'm pretty solid in my opinions of given players
Yeah,
available,
sure.
I would take player Y
Yeah.
in that situation, in terms of, if, say these 3 or 4 are off the board, I'm in spot 5, here's who I'm going to pick then.
Right.
I'm very solid in those choices.
Yeah, me
but
too. But like predicting like the Flyers as an example,
mm,
I'd have been wrong the last 3 drafts.
yeah, I mean, that Cam York pick, not uh, able to predict that one. I was probably Tyson Foerster was out of left field, I
Forster
think.
wasn't out of left field for me. That was probably the last time I got something right.
Yeah, I think Forster became more clear like right that day to me, but
Mhm.
as far as prior to that, probably not. So I think, yeah, it's a really hard game to be in, and
It
I
is.
do admire people who can do it. But we're going to be talking about potential draft picks pretty consistently through the draft. We've already got over 20 of them on our draft spreadsheet that you can find a link to in our show notes or pinned to our Twitter and Blue Sky profiles to check out the profiles of all the draft eligible prospects we have done so far and will continue to do. There's direct links to the YouTube episode for each of them. So feel free to take a look over there. And as a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you've got mailbag questions or Flyers thoughts, let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. You can find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.